Hello, everybody. This is Debbie from Teacher Success Coach with another episode of the Female Educators Roundtable. And as usual, on a Saturday, we look at female educators around the world who are sharing will be sharing their story with us as to what it was like before COVID, what it was like during COVID, and now we're back in the so-called normal, what is like in the classroom in relationship to discipline, in relationship to student mindset, in relationship to student mental health. So those are some of the areas we talk about on this platform on a Saturday. Welcome, 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 welcome. Welcome, Cecilia. Thank you for accepting the offer to come online to share your journey with us. As we know, teaching during this time was very rocky. I feel it's still rocky. You might say it differently, but for me, it's still rocky because the students' mental health are still, it's still challenging in terms of their navigating the mental health and the behavior issues, etc. So thank you for coming on, as I say. Tell us where you come from, etc.
Thanks, Debbie. So I am a teacher from the UK. Did you hear me?
Yes, I did. Yes. Okay. So what part of the UK are you from?
So I'm from the East Midlands in England.
Okay. And how long have you been teaching?
So 2 years. It's my third year now.
Okay. So you came in just before COVID, right?
It was kind of like in the middle of just as COVID was ending. So when I started, we still had like restrictions such as like social distancing and like wearing masks, and that didn't really stop until I want to say like Christmas time, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So how did the fact that you're a new teacher, that's brilliant. So how was it when you've just finished university, right?
Yeah.
And then you're coming into this supposed to be a nice, excited career, and bam, it was a crazy career. How was it for you?
Yeah, it was a huge learning curve because I've never it was my first job after university, so it was a lot to learn. And especially because we had those restrictions and just like making sure that kids followed the restrictions because they obviously would like to do what they did before COVID and they weren't always able to do that. And so yeah, thankfully I didn't really deal with the the extent that COVID restrictions went to previously in like early 2020 because I started teaching like the second year of the pandemic when things were starting to like calm down a bit. So I didn't deal with things like not kids not going to school and like teaching really small classes and trying to figure out how to teach on teams. So like I was really blessed in that regard that like it was only a small part of my teaching career that was affected by the pandemic. Um, so yeah, it's been great to like go back to normal, if you can call it that, in terms of teaching face to face and yeah.
Well, you were blessed because some of us, that's why, as I was saying to you, this is one of the reasons why I started this platform because some of us were having real challenges.
Yeah.
You on team because my experience was of team was, they put the essays on team and they put ton on teams and that was it. It was never to teach or never to have a meeting.
Yeah.
So in essence, in terms of having to have a meeting, not in the meeting, having to teach online where you're teaching to a screen, there's no face because they're not even putting the cameras on. And I remember the first time I actually did the online. I put on my PowerPoint and the PowerPoint disappeared. I'm sitting just like this thinking, hold on. I'm sure I put this PowerPoint on,
Yeah.
I said, probably I didn't. I put it back on and the PowerPoint disappeared. I'm thinking, no. And it's like, they're laughing, but you're not hearing because they're mute, right?
Yeah.
And then I said to them, I said, is it me going mad or is someone actually taking the PowerPoint off? And then they started blaming everybody. And then I had a sibling come on. One of them little brother came on and it was a whole lot of noise. Oh my goodness. it was a nightmare.
Oh
So you
no.
were blessed.
Yeah, I am
You were
definitely.
really blessed because I also realized that in order for me to understand the platform, I had to stay up all night so that I'd go onto Google, go onto
Wow.
YouTube to teach myself to make sure I take control of the class the next morning.
Yeah.
And I did because when they came on, I mute them all. And I'm talking to them and I knew they were muted, right? And they say they're in the message book, Miss, you muted us. I said, oh, you guys noticed that.
Yeah.
It was so funny. Yeah. So
Yeah,
that was what I
it wouldn't
did.
surprise me if it was a student that removed your PowerPoint because I had a student freeze my board in lesson a couple months ago.
My goodness, they're up to all sorts.
Yeah,
They're
they
up
are.
to all sorts.
Yeah.
And it's always, for me, it was always because I was teaching the year 10s. And
Mm,
it's always the year 10. They're bringing during when we were online during that period, they were bringing their little siblings. They were doing all sorts of
yeah.
craziness. And
Yeah.
it's like the sibling is coming on and screaming at this thing. Oh, God, to tell you.
Oh,
So that's one of the reasons why I started the platform, because I'm thinking, hold on, I am not the only one going through this. Let's share the challenges here.
yeah,
you know
definitely. Definitely.
and it was interesting to see how so many teachers were having some of the same experiences in terms of the children were not turning up. So in America especially, a lot of the teachers decided, instead of having lessons the normal time from 10 o'clock or 9 o'clock, they decided to have lessons in the evening time you know
Right.
and they realized that most students were turning up for the evening lessons than they did for the morning time, because morning time they were all sleeping.
Yeah.
you know so you were lucky, you were very lucky, but at the same time it would have been a good experience for you.
I doubt it.
So in terms of relationship, so you actually had part of your training online, right, and part in the classroom.
Yeah, so it was 6 weeks of training in the summer. No, 5 weeks of training, and 4 weeks were online. And then I had 1 week where I had a placement in the school that I'd be going to, get to know what it was like. Um, I had I think a couple of times where I was able to like teach a part of a lesson because there was also someone else who was training to teach English with me in the same school, so we went together. Um, and so yeah, that just gave me the opportunity to feel more confident about going to the school because I'd never even heard of the school or the place.
All
Um,
right.
because with Teach First, they just kind of put you where they need teachers, really. You get a choice of like maybe 5 regions, but it really depends on the need. So yeah, that was quite helpful to get to know the place a bit before I moved there. Yeah.
Okay, so you moved from somewhere else to that area.
Yeah, so
All
I
right.
went to university in Leicester, but my hometown is in Lancashire, up north.
All
Um,
right.
and so I was placed in the East Midlands probably because I went to university there. Which
Okay.
I didn't mind at all. I was happy to be in the East Midlands anyway. Um, and so yeah, I've moved officially
Oh,
to the East Midlands now.
all right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how was it for you when you were teaching part online and part physical?
So with when I started, we didn't really do online teaching. The only we were still it was all in the classroom, but
Okay.
we still had we just had to wear masks sometimes.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, yeah, so again, I was very blessed to not worry about that. The only time I did online teaching was towards the end of my first year when some other colleagues and I did like year 11 revision classes. So that probably gave me an idea of what it must have been like during COVID because we had similar issues of like kids not turning their camera, not really engaging with the questions, not having a lot of kids turn up as well.
Mm.
So yeah, I definitely experienced a small fraction of what other teachers might have experienced during COVID. But yeah.
Okay, thank you. Yes, well, it was definitely a fraction for you.
Yeah.
So what it's been like in terms of our relationship with the students?
So it was probably harder than it is now at the beginning. I feel like 2 years is a good time to have taught at a new school and for the kids to get used to you and for things to get easier personally. Um, because at the beginning, some of the kids at first, they didn't really respond very well to like a new teacher because um, they're quite used to teachers leaving after a short period of time. So they probably assumed that I would be leaving soon as well. So they don't really, some of them don't respond very positively to you. However, I still had kids, even when I first started teaching, responding well. And you always have kids like that. You have some kids that respond well immediately, whereas other kids don't respond as quickly. Um, and so I think uh, now I think it's been really good actually because I have a form group that I've had since year seven and they're in year eight now. And they are willing to talk to me about issues, which is great. And having kids like want me to like go and like to tell me about their sports and games and things like that. So that's been really positive and like getting to know the kids like outside of just teaching them English. Um, so yeah, I had a kid
Okay.
tell me that she's going to get a belly button piercing, and then the next time I saw her, she just randomly showed me her belly button piercing. I didn't ask her to show me that. She's like, okay. And then one of her friends like, "Miss, you want to see my belly button?" I was like, oh, no, but she still showed it to me. So yeah, you definitely have so you have things like that where it's just like they want to tell you about things and they're very excited to tell you about things and that's
Yeah.
great. And it's been really encouraging that they see you like that. Um, so that's probably been a good thing with relationships. And then like that helps in lessons because it means that they respond better. But I think also it's not always helpful to just like say relationships is what's going to help kids do well in lessons because you've got new teachers who don't know the students, don't know the school. They shouldn't be told, oh, just build a relationship with them because that's not going to help them with the behavior management. Like the kids should still respond to um, teachers as an authority, not just because they have a good relationship with them, if you know what I mean. So I think it's more of an add-on benefit than it shouldn't be seen as like the crux of behavior management, I don't think. Yeah.
Thank you. Are you saying that you have the same tutor group from year seven and you have them in year eight as well?
I do, yeah.
All
Um,
right.
so when my school was this arrange like tutor groups and stuff, teachers had the opportunity to say whether or not they wanted to keep the tutor group.
Okay.
And I wanted to keep them because I I would have liked to just keep the same group that I had and keep getting to know them so that they had that stability as well throughout their time at the school. I mean, I don't know if I'll be staying the whole time there at school until they're in year 11, but for whilst I'm here, if I can at least provide that stability, then yeah,
Okay. That's interesting. All right.
yeah,
Okay. It does make a difference, though, as you say. It does give them that sense of stability because especially if it's a school that have high turnover of teachers, it means that they're seeing teacher in terms of the subject changing all the time.
yeah,
And that
definitely.
could be quite unsettling for a lot of students.
Yeah, especially because like when they come from primary school, they're used to having like just one teacher for everything and seeing that same teacher
Yes,
all day. And then they come to
yes,
secondary school and it's such a huge difference because they're going to different classrooms, different teachers, different teaching styles. It can get
yes,
very confusing. Um,
yes.
which is why I understand now it makes sense for why consistency is so important across the school because it just makes things so much easier, not just for the teachers, but for the students as well.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I guess having the same tutor helps with that consistency.
Yeah, it really does in terms of when they come from year seven, because from time to time, you get to cover, from different groups, etc. And one of the interesting thing is that's I finding a lot because right now I currently do supply.
Right.
And one of the things I realize is when I cover, and I really, I deliberately like to cover year seven group. When you cover year seven, one of the things a lot of them say, and I find it across the board from school to school, the majority of them hate year sevens because that's one of the things that come up is they're really strict and they're so confusing. They cannot find a classroom. And when they get to the classroom, they get late, the teacher tell them off. And even though the teacher see that they're crying, the teacher is still telling them off. And that's something I've had in so many schools that the students are complaining about, they hate being in big school in year seven because the teachers don't understand that we are new and we getting lost and they expect us to get to the class on time. And when you're late, they tell you off. And even though they see that you're upset, they're still telling you off. So it's really interesting and it really does help if they have the same teacher all the time in terms of the year group because it really does help them. Even now, I'm here in the year seven in the school I'm in now, still saying the same thing. Even the year eight, actually, they say because some of them have the same teacher. The same teacher might teach them in a subject continuous, which is quite good. With some school tend to keep the same teacher teaching them, in the next year the same subject, which is quite good. And they would say things like, oh yes, they know this teacher from year seven. And it's really nice because they could go and talk to them because she's been my English teacher or my maths teacher from year seven. And it does make a difference because they all still complain of the same thing, how hard it was for them in year seven. And we as teachers don't understand. And maybe we don't, you know.
Yeah. I don't know because I do I think with year sevens at our school as well, like some of them are still getting confused and they're still coming to lesson late because they got the wrong classroom and they thought they
Yeah,
had this lesson, they thought they had that lesson.
yeah.
But then I think are we are they does that mean that because yes it also it means that they need that consistency, but also I think they also need to learn that primary school is different to secondary school and I don't think there's always time um in primary school to teach them like that things are going to be different and try to get them to be more independent with their timetable because even with my um even with older students you will still have some of them saying I went to the wrong lesson, I'm late because I thought I had this, I thought I had that, but that's more of like a lack of independence than it is them not having like consistency when it continues even past year seven. And so I feel like it can be both things because I'm thinking of when I was in year seven, I think most of the students in my year group, I think we were told it would take like maybe 2 weeks to get used to the school. And it did. Like and it probably maybe my school was a bit smaller, but I feel like whilst we need to have consistency for them and we need to make things stable for them, we also need to like expect them to become independent students. And my year eight form group, some of them are always asking me, what have I got for this lesson? What have I got this lesson? I'm like, I'm not telling you. You need to be independent yourself. Like they have access to an online platform that tells them their timetables. They can look at that the evening before, write down their lessons so that they're not asking me the morning after. But some of them they don't want to take that extra step to do that and to take that initiative. And so sometimes I think that's also the issue, as well as um, secondary school not being as stable as primary school was.
So thank you for that. So your students are not given a paper copy of the timetable?
They are.
Or they
they,
have, oh, please.
they get paper copy, they lose it, or it gets ruined, or they don't look at it. So yeah, even with the paper
Right.
copy, some of them, they don't always take initiative, and I think that's really important for them to do that. Yeah.
It's interesting because if they have paper copy, don't but ask me about your time. It is so true though, because even sixth formers are saying to the same thing as you've just said. One of them was supposed to come to my lesson yesterday, and it's like, oh, she didn't come because she didn't remember she had my lesson. I said, really? I said, that's a detention for you. You see, because it's a situation, of course they know they had the lesson, but they just couldn't be bothered to come to the lesson. Because it's last lesson on a Friday. Who wants to come to last lesson on a Friday? If I could Skype off, right?
Yeah.
That's what some of them does.
It is, definitely.
So it's interesting. Thank you for that. What does self-care and mental well-being look like for you?
So personally, I'm a Christian, and so well-being is my faith is a big part of my well-being in terms of remaining encouraged and persevering with teaching, because we both know teaching is a difficult profession and it has its ups and downs. And so for me, I regularly go to church. I meet up with Christians during the week. Today, for example, I went to a wedding. It was a Christian wedding. It was really lovely. And then we had a reception, but not a reception, like an informal reception afterwards. And then spoke to some people there. Also, I like to cook, so I do that as well, cooking and baking, and I sometimes take things that I bake into work. I also like to go to the gym, and sometimes I go running. So yeah, I really try and have things to do outside of school. Um, my first year of teaching, I didn't do that at all. Like I remember, I can't believe I did this, but from the moment I started teaching in 2021 September, probably up until February 2022, so it wasn't really that long ago, I would spend even my Saturdays at home, just planning lessons. I didn't really get to explore the town that I was living in at all. Um, but I didn't want to, I didn't that just wasn't sustainable. I couldn't keep doing that. And so I learned to use my frees better and use my frees during the week to plan lessons, trying to get to school earlier as well so that I can leave earlier and I can do other things during the evening rather than just planning. I I don't think since I started this year in September, I haven't taken anything home or any marking.
Oh,
Um,
brilliant.
so I really try to use my time as well as I can so that I have time to do other things and have a life.
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Yes.
so yeah, that's what I do really. But the center of all of that is being a Christian for me, and understanding that I'm not. It's not just for myself that I'm working, but for God that I'm working, and so I need to do my best in that, and that also looks like managing my time and understanding that I have enough time. I just need to use it wisely and have fellowship with other believers as well, and yeah, so that's what I do.
Right, right. It's interesting though, because thank you for that. Normally, when we start a job first time, we kind of just throw ourselves in it. And then you realize you're just working, just working, just working. And then you say, hold on, I am so tired. There's no way I could keep this up.
Yeah,
And as an NQT, you're an ECT rather, you have a lot, free because they make sure that they don't fill up your timetable.
yeah,
So it's a matter of using the time, spend less time doing some of the things that you're doing that's not necessary.
yeah.
So what time does your school finishes?
So we have 2 long days and 3 short days. On the short days, when we have training, or a learning area meeting, we finish at 5. And then on the short days, we finish at 2:45.
All right, 2:45. Very nice. So what
Yeah,
time you
it's
start?
8:30.
Oh, wow. 2:45. That's a
Yeah,
real nice. So
it
you
is.
have 2 days where you finish at 5, right?
Yeah, Mondays and Thursdays, and then
Oh,
Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Fridays we finish early.
2:45. So
It's
when you
very.
finish at 2:45, you leave the premises at 2:45.
I leave at 3 usually because I sometimes I don't so I don't log my points after lessons because sometimes I might have a full day of teaching, so I can't log all of my behavior negative or positive points, and so I
Okay.
spend like the last 15 minutes just doing all of that, and then I go home.
Okay. All right. So I
Yeah.
suppose for 3 days leaving at 3 and for
Mm.
2 days at 5, I suppose it's worth it, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's good.
Okay, okay, okay. It's interesting. The school I'm in, we finish at 3:30. At
Okay.
3:30, I'm running to the staff room, fling my
Yeah.
stuff down. At 3:45, 35, I'm trying to run out of that office, right?
Yeah.
And one day we finish at 5, which is on a Thursday,
Mm.
you know, which is really but we start at 8:40.
Wow.
Yeah, 8:40. It's a
Yeah.
lovely school. This is the first school I've actually worked in that you finish at 3:30 and you could leave at 3:30.
Mm.
All the others you could finish at 3:30, but you can't leave until 4 o'clock or stupidness like that.
Yeah. Direct time and things. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. So but this school, I mean, they really take your teachers' well-being very seriously, which is quite
Mm.
good. Which is quite good. Okay. Right. Terms of behavior, are you experiencing any behavior management challenges in your classroom with
Sorry, could you repeat that? You're
happening?
breaking up again.
Yes, I realize that. Within your classroom now, are you experiencing any behavior issue? What are some of the behavior issues
Oh,
you would say
okay.
that you are experiencing?
Um, I feel like the biggest thing is probably a lack of intrinsic motivation. Um, and just trying to get students to enjoy learning and studying. Um, so often they would just rather be at home, and I get that, who wouldn't want to, you know, be at home, be in that place of comfort, completely understand. Um, but it's just hard to get them to enjoy education. So
Mm.
that's probably the big thing, just like motivation. Um, and then I think they are just sometimes keeping them on task with the learning and getting them to really focus on their learning and stay engaged. That's probably yeah. So I'd say the biggest challenge is just getting them motivated.
Mhm, mhm. What do you think is the cause of that?
Well, I wish I was teaching before COVID actually, and so and so that I could have seen what it was like before COVID, and so maybe, COVID has something to do with them not being motivated as much. But also,
Mhm,
I think technology has had a really negative impact on children because they spend hours on their phones on TikTok, and it's it really it shortens their attention span so much because they're just watching short videos all the time, just scrolling past it. Like they can decide if they want to watch something or not and just like scroll past it. But when they're at school, they have to sit in one spot for a whole hour, 5 times a day, and they're just not used to concentrating and really focusing on things. And so technology apps is probably what I would say is the biggest cause of
mhm,
that. And
mhm,
um, just, yeah, I'd say technology as well.
mhm, mhm. Thank you. Do you guys have any challenges with the students on the phone? Have you got any issues with that?
So at my school, the policy is that students should not be on their phones for any reason during school time,
Mhm,
um, unless it's authorized and like I don't know they need to call home or something. But they have to do that like in the presence of a member of staff. And so if they are seen with their phone, it should be confiscated. Um, and if they don't hand over their phone, then they receive a sanction. And so that's what the policy is at my school regarding phones.
Okay, because you teach year 10, year 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11, right?
Yeah.
Are you seeing any issues with the phone though? Apart from the school having this policy, do you, in your lessons, do you feel that are the students on the phone or they actually adhering to the rules?
No, I don't usually have issues with students being on their phones in my lessons. Um, so no, not really. It has happened sometimes, but it's not been like a lot of students doing it. It might just be like one particular student. Usually it's older students who try and go on their phone. But honestly, being a teacher has made me extra vigilant because you have to watch for things so carefully. Um, so yeah, usually it's not an issue regarding that.
Thank you. It's interesting though because it have not been an issue, but I have one student are constantly watching, and anytime I catch her, she's on her phone, and so I'm standing outside at
Mm,
sixth form and I'm saying to her, just get out of my class. You know the school rules.
yeah,
It is so annoying. What I started doing, I never used to allow them to, use their phone as a tool for research. But in my last week's lesson, I allowed them to use it because there was something I wanted them to do. And I thought, oh gosh, I don't want to print out all this work. Let me get them to use the phone. And they were very good though, because after I've asked them to use the phone, I say, I don't want to see any phone on the desk. So as soon as they use the phone, they put it away. So
mm,
that was, that's quite good because normally I don't get that in schools, especially if it's sixth form. Sixth formers always find that excuse to be on the phone. But in this particular
yeah,
school, it's a silent code for them because in the sixth form, they know that they're not supposed to be on the phone and you don't see them on the phone
yeah,
you know. So I must say this school is very good in terms of students on the phone. I've been in schools where every minute they're sneaking and every minute you have to be so vigilant and you're thinking, oh,
mm,
it's tiring. It's
yeah.
tiring. But in this school, nah, they don't even have much of a behavior in the school, which is quite nice.
Wow.
Exactly, which is really, the behavior they have is very low level behavior, chatty, chatty, chatty. That's it.
Mm,
And all I have to say, really, you guys don't know how to keep your mouth shut? That's fine. I just want detention for the whole class. That's it. And,
wow.
they don't want to have detention. So therefore, the noise then subsides,
Yeah.
you know. Okay, another question is, as a teacher, what is the thing that really stresses you out as being a teacher?
Um, Probably just having so much to teach in the curriculum. And I love English and I love that students are getting to learn about all the classics, Shakespeare, Dickens, um, and they're getting to read poetry and things like that. I just wish that we had that chance to really go into depth with those things because I feel like when we teach it and we're rushing through things, like we're not really going through like the step by steps of things. So like for example, like with English, at the end of year 11, students have to take 4 English exams, 2 English language and 2 English literature.
Yeah, yeah.
And with English language, for instance, in paper one, they have to do creative writing. And creative writing is always in pretty much most schemes from year 7 onwards. But it would just be amazing if we could really go into like granular details of how to write creatively, how to write an exposition, how to write, the rise in action, the climax, the fall in action, the resolution, like to really think about the steps for each of those things because
Mhm,
we don't really do that because there just isn't enough time to do that.
mhm,
And they're just going through all that learning and it'd just be great if we could just slow down, and um, go deeper with the topics instead.
mhm, mhm. I see that, and it's interesting because this is a question I ask a lot of teachers. What really stresses you out about teaching? And they all say the national curriculum, because we do not have time to teach the students the beauty of our subject. And
Yeah,
it's true. And it is
that's
true.
exactly it.
Yeah, it is true. What's the most rewarding thing as a teacher?
Um, I think seeing kids actually become independent learners, um, because again, this might be due to COVID or it might just be a general issue, but um, I think they've gotten so used to being spoon fed and just being given answers that they really struggle with thinking for themselves sometimes. So for me, the most rewarding thing is when, they learn something in my lesson and they take that and then they go further with that. Like, so for example, currently revising An Inspector Calls, which is a play by J.B. Priestley, with my year 11 class. And one of them has made extra flashcards for revision so that he's, ready for his exam. And that was, amazing. And when they, really take the initiative to complete the homework and like they actually spend time out of lesson, like working on it. And they, in their writing, when I can see that they are really thinking about what they've said and how to arrange structure their writing. So yeah, the rewarding thing is when they become independent learners for me, because it means that they've really taken the subject as their own and enjoy it.
Mhm. That is very true. I think most teachers reward the aha moments. It's like you're teaching them,
Yeah,
and all of a sudden they say, "Oh my goodness, I've got it!" And you just say,
yeah,
"Really, that's brilliant!" Because it's like you're teaching them, and they're not getting it. It's like I've been teaching Marxism. It's like on Monday, I realized that most of my classes, they haven't connect with Marxism. And I'm thinking, okay, I need to do it another way. Let's use the newspaper to go through it. And I'm
mm,
teaching, and then students say, oh my goodness, miss, is this what Marxism is all about? I really do really understand it. And I
yeah,
say to them, oh my goodness. I put my hand and I say, oh my goodness, that's been a hard road. I don't understand why you guys didn't understand it. And it really does make a difference because it's like you've been teaching them and you think that they understand it. And I gave them a piece of work, and when they'll hand it back, I think, oh my goodness, some of them don't have a clue about Marxism. I
mm,
say, I'll have to go back and teach that again. And it's so interesting, especially, and also yesterday's session when some of them, when I said them, okay, let's recap on Marx and support it with examples. And they were able to summarize and support with an example. You're thinking, oh my goodness. I said, you guys understand it. That's brilliant. So those aha moments are wonderful because it makes you think as a teacher, all this stress is worth it because they got it.
yeah.
Yes, I share that. I really share that. Yes. All right. Do you think that teaching should be teacher-led, teacher-centered, or student-led, student-centered?
I'd have to say teacher-led. Um, student, is it teach-led, student-centered, right? Yeah.
Right. Is
Um,
teacher-led, teacher-centered, or student-led, student-centered?
yeah. Well, I think it should be teacher-led, but eventually it should become student-centered because the teacher should give the students the knowledge and the skills to become independent learners. That's what I think. I don't think we can assume that kids have all the knowledge in the world to know what they want to learn. Um, and I think we need to give them that understanding and knowledge and give them all the skills that they need so that they can be successful. Um, over the past 2 years, whilst I was teaching, I was completing a postgraduate diploma in education with Birmingham City University. And in one of my assignments, which was about collaborative learning and development, we had to think about creativity and what creativity meant. And Emmaus was talking about how creativity it's not just something that exists on its own. Creativity has to have a bank of knowledge in order before you become creative. You need to know what good looks like in order for you to then come up with your own suggestions of what to add to that field of what good looks like. Like example, in a less that's why modeling is so it happens all the time in teaching. We need to show them what a good thing looks like if we want them to do that well. We can't just give them a task and expect them to do as well as we might if we haven't broken down the steps. And then a good example.
Thank you for that. Finally, what tips would you give? What 3 tips would you give to a teacher who is having mental health and well-being issues to enable them to reduce anxiety?
Sorry, you broke up again, but I think I know what the question was.
Yeah.
Like, what 3 tips I would give?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So, first thing would be to find a community of people that you can spend time with. Like I said, for me, it's spending time with other Christians. Um, and people that you can talk to about your issues that you can find support from. Second thing would be to think about your timetable. You'll probably surprise yourself at how much time you actually have, and think about if it's possible for you to get to work a bit earlier so that you can have evenings to do other things, whether that's exercising or baking or cooking or going for a walk, anything that you can do during the week to take your mind off of school. And the third thing, I think, I'm not sure. I think just learning to separate like your life from work. Teaching isn't something that needs to consume your whole your thoughts and everything that you do. Like you can still enjoy teaching, still be a good teacher without seeing teaching that way. So yeah, find a community, learn how to manage your time, and don't see teaching as the be all and end all, really.
Okay. Thank you so very much for that, Cecilia. It was wonderful.
No
I enjoyed chatting with you.
You too.
Thank you for contributing to this platform. Thank you. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up?
Just that no, I don't think so. No. I no I don't think so.
Okay. Right. Thank you very much. And thank you very much, my Facebook audience. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. I would ask you to share, because it is so important that teachers know that they are not alone. And also, parents, is actually help parents to know what we are going through as teachers, and also help them to know that some of the areas their children need to be connected with. And one of the issues in terms of some of those children, the behavior when they get to school is different from when you're teaching them at home. You teach them real manners at home. When they come to school, you don't even think that's the same child that the teacher is dealing with. Some of them is completely different from what they're like being at home with you. So that's one of the things that parents need to be aware of, what's going on in the children's lives, because sometimes you don't know what's going on. When they come to school, they're completely different, because sometimes they're suffering from a whole lot of issues that you may not realize it and you might take it for granted. It is so important that you really tap into your children or your child to know what's going on in their lives. Anyway, thank you guys. Take care, stay blessed. Have a fantastic evening, night where you are. And I'll see you guys on Wednesday of next week when we look at female empowerment and what some of the triggers are that empower women. Take care. Stay blessed, people. Bye.